For thousands of years, the undisputed kings of Europe and Asia weren't us. They were stronger, they had more muscle mass, they were perfectly adapted to the freezing cold. And here's the detail that usually gets swept under the rug. Their brains were actually bigger than ours. The Neanderthals were the ultimate survival machines. So, how does a genetically perfect species just vanish from the face of the Earth in a historical blink of an eye? If you open a middle school textbook, you'll read a comforting little story. It says they just couldn't adapt, they faded away. But the truth buried in the dirt is a whole lot darker. What if our ancestors, Homo sapiens, didn't peacefully inherit the Earth? What if, instead, we were a weaponized, invasive species, and the Neanderthals were simply the victims of the very first global extermination campaign? Mainstream anthropology loves to paint this romantic picture. They tell us we were just smarter, we had better language skills. They frame it like the Neanderthals politely stepped aside or just quietly succumbed to a changing climate. It's a tough pill to swallow, but that narrative is falling apart. When you look at the actual sedimentary layers, you don't see a peaceful transition. You see a meat grinder. Because the fossil record shows a chilling pattern. Wherever Homo sapiens set foot, an absolute apocalypse followed. From massive megafauna down to our own evolutionary cousins, they didn't just disappear, they were systematically wiped out. Let's look at the actual crime scenes. Take the Shanidar cave in Iraq. Researchers found Neanderthal remains with something terrifying etched into their bones. Puncture wounds, sliced right through the ribs. These weren't caused by bear claws or falling rocks. They were made by high-velocity, lightweight projectile weapons, like throwing spears. The exact kind of cutting-edge tech that only Homo sapiens possessed at the time. That wasn't a hunting accident. That was war. And it wasn't an isolated incident either. Trace the migration map of our ancestors. Homo sapiens land in Australia, the giant marsupials are instantly wiped off the map. We cross into North America, the mammoths and saber-toothed tigers suddenly go extinct. We march into Europe, and the Neanderthals evaporate. That's not a climate coincidence. That's the footprint of a species with an innate instinct to destroy. But there's another piece of evidence, one that lives inside you right now. Genetic testing proves that modern humans carry about 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. Scientists politely call this interbreeding. But if you look at the brutal history of human warfare, a much darker reality emerges. When an invading army slaughters the males of a rival tribe, what happens to the survivors? It wasn't a prehistoric romance, it was forced assimilation. Honestly, think about it from their perspective. Homo sapiens are, without a doubt, the worst neighbors in the history of planet Earth. You've been living peacefully in your cave for 300,000 years. You're cooking food, you're taking care of your family, you're minding your own business. Then one day, a bunch of skinny, hairless weirdos with pointy sticks move into the valley. Within a month, your pets are eaten, the local forest is burned to the ground, and you catch a spear to the ribs. If the universe had a Yelp page for biological species, Homo sapiens would get a hard 1-star review. Extremely toxic. Do not share a planet with them. But jokes aside, that brings up an unsettling question. Why are we so aggressively, uncharacteristically violent compared to every other primate on this planet? Some controversial theories, like the ones we looked at regarding ancient genetic intervention, suggest something chilling. What if Homo sapiens didn't evolve naturally at all? What if we were genetically tweaked, engineered to be an emotionless biological cleanup crew? It sounds crazy, but the scientific elite are desperate to maintain this illusion of human nobility. They want to keep our history sanitized because they are terrified to admit that the foundation of human civilization wasn't built on intellect, cooperation, and peace. It was built entirely on the shattered bones of a cousin species we slaughtered. They want us to believe we're the good guys, the enlightened, peaceful guardians of the earth, but the dirt beneath our feet doesn't lie. Here at Forbidden Origins, we aren't afraid to look directly into the shadows hiding in our own genetic code. So, what do you think? Did the Neanderthals just catch a bad break with the weather, or were our ancestors the very first serial killers on Earth? And if we were, is that violent instinct our own fault, or were we programmed that way? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and never ever stop questioning where you really came from.